My own family left me standing in a blizzard without a coat, calling me a burden who should learn to take care of herself. But they had no idea they were abandoning the woman who secretly controlled the $200 million trust fund that had been financing their luxury lifestyles, private school tuitions, and dream homes for the past 15 years, and whose signature on a single document would cut off every penny of their inheritance by spring. Before we dive into this incredible story of family betrayal and the financial empire my ungrateful relatives never knew I controlled, make sure to hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me about your worst experience with family members who underestimated you and discovered just how wrong they could be. And subscribe so you never miss stories like this one, about what happens when people assume elderly relatives are helpless burdens and learn the devastating cost of abandoning someone whose generosity they had been taking for granted their entire lives. My name is Margaret Thornfield. I'm 70 years old, and this story begins on December 23, 2022, during the worst blizzard Chicago had seen in 30 years. When I made what seemed like a simple request for my son David and daughter-in-law Jennifer to drive me home from their holiday party. A request that would reveal their true character and teach them the most expensive lesson about treating elderly family members like disposable inconveniences rather than understanding the financial foundation their comfortable lives had been built upon for decades. But to understand how David and Jennifer Thornfield, the entitled couple who thought they could humiliate and abandon a 70-year-old woman in a snowstorm, ended up losing their $2.8 million house, their children's private school education, and access to the family trust fund that had been secretly funding their lifestyle, you need to know who I was before my carefully maintained image as a dependent elderly mother concealed one of the most powerful financial legacies in the Midwest. For 45 years I was Margaret Thornfield, senior managing partner and founding architect of Thornfield Capital Management, one of America's most influential investment firms controlling $12 billion in assets across real estate, technology startups, and blue-chip portfolios throughout the Great Lakes region. I wasn't just living on a fixed retirement income. I was the strategic mastermind responsible for building generational wealth worth hundreds of millions of dollars and controlling the investment relationships that determined which families maintained their prosperity and which ones discovered that financial security could disappear overnight when they violated the trust and respect that wealth required. My responsibilities encompassed managing investment portfolios for over 200 high-net-worth families throughout the Midwest, overseeing real estate developments that shaped Chicago's skyline and suburban expansion, coordinating with wealth management firms and private banks that handled the fortunes of America's most successful entrepreneurs, and implementing the financial strategies that preserved family legacies across multiple generations while ensuring that inherited wealth was used responsibly and maintained through sound investment principles and family values. But these achievements only tell part of the story about the complexity and critical importance of generational wealth management at the highest levels of American finance. When you're responsible for maintaining investment returns that determine whether families can afford their children's Ivy League educations, preserve their family estates through economic downturns, and pass substantial inheritances to future generations, every decision carries enormous weight and consequences that extend far beyond individual family finances to impact entire communities and charitable organizations that depend on family foundation grants and philanthropic contributions. During the 2008 financial crisis that destroyed millions of retirement accounts and eliminated generational wealth throughout America, I coordinated protective strategies that literally saved dozens of family fortunes and prevented the collapse of charitable foundations that supported hospitals, universities, and community organizations across the Midwest. Working 20-hour days for 8 months straight, I restructured investment portfolios in real time, negotiated with banks and creditors to prevent foreclosures on family properties that had been owned for generations, managed trust fund distributions that kept families financially stable during the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, and implemented emergency financial protocols that allowed wealthy families to maintain their philanthropic commitments while preserving their core assets for future recovery. I remember specifically working with the Henderson family, who owned a century-old manufacturing business in Milwaukee that employed over 500 people and supported their local community through substantial charitable giving. When the financial crisis hit, their business faced potential bankruptcy due to credit freezes and supply chain disruptions that threatened to eliminate not only their family fortune, but also the jobs and community support that their company provided to thousands of families throughout Wisconsin. I coordinated with emergency lending partners, restructured their debt obligations through strategic asset reorganization, and provided bridge financing from our crisis management fund that allowed the Henderson Manufacturing Company to survive the worst period of the recession while maintaining their workforce and continuing their community philanthropic programs. The company not only survived but expanded significantly during the recovery, eventually becoming one of the largest manufacturing employers in the Midwest and increasing their charitable giving to over $2 million annually. The Henderson family's success became a model for other family-owned businesses facing similar crisis challenges, and their story was featured in Forbes magazine as an example of how sophisticated wealth management and crisis planning could protect not only individual family fortunes, but entire communities that depended on family business success for economic stability and growth. Thornfield Capital Management specialized in multi-generational wealth preservation, strategic philanthropy, estate planning, and maintaining the complex relationships between family wealth, business operations, and community responsibility. A mistake in portfolio allocation could cost families millions of dollars in potential returns and threaten their ability to maintain their lifestyle and philanthropic commitments. Errors in estate planning could result in devastating tax consequences that eliminated generational wealth transfer and left families unable to preserve their legacy for future generations. Failures in crisis management could lead to complete financial ruin that destroyed not only family fortunes, but also the charitable foundations and community organizations that depended on family wealth for their continued operation and community impact. My expertise in high-level wealth management extended beyond our investment firm to consulting relationships with major banks including JP Chase and Goldman Sachs. Philanthropic organizations like the Ford Foundation and Carnegie Corporation, and family offices throughout North America that managed billions of dollars in generational wealth for America's most successful families and their charitable foundations. I helped establish the wealth management protocols that determined which investment strategies were appropriate for preserving family fortunes across multiple generations. Trained bank executives in the complex relationship between family dynamics and financial planning so they could properly advise wealthy clients about balancing personal needs with legacy preservation, and developed the philanthropic frameworks that smaller family foundations could use to maximize their community impact while maintaining their long-term financial sustainability. One of my most significant consulting achievements involved working with the Rockwell Family Foundation in Detroit, which managed over $500 million in charitable assets and supported education, healthcare, and community development programs throughout Michigan. The foundation was facing potential dissolution due to family disputes over philanthropic priorities and investment strategies, with younger family members pushing for aggressive growth investments while older generations insisted on conservative preservation strategies, creating conflicts that threatened to eliminate decades of community impact and charitable giving. I spent 3 years restructuring their investment approach, implementing balanced portfolio strategies that satisfied both growth and preservation objectives, and creating governance protocols that resolved family disputes by establishing separate advisory boards for different philanthropic areas, while maintaining unified investment management that preserved the foundation's financial stability and growth potential. The restructured foundation became so successful that it doubled its annual charitable giving within 5 years, while maintaining financial stability that ensured continued community support for generations to come. The foundation's success attracted attention from other family foundations throughout the Midwest, who adopted similar governance and investment structures, creating a network of coordinated philanthropic organizations that increased their collective community impact significantly. These consulting opportunities provided substantial additional income that enhanced our family's already considerable financial position, but more importantly, they gave me comprehensive understanding of how generational wealth affects family relationships, how financial dependence influences behavior and character, and how family members often underestimate elderly relatives' expertise and influence when they assume those relatives are simply living on retirement savings rather than recognizing their continued control over investment decisions and wealth distribution that could dramatically change family financial circumstances based on. The most disturbing cases I encountered during my wealth management career involved adult children who systematically exploited elderly parents' generosity and financial support, treating trust fund distributions and family gifts as entitlements rather than understanding that continued financial support required maintaining respectful relationships and demonstrating the character and values that justified generational wealth preservation and family legacy continuation. I witnessed situations where successful professionals, doctors, lawyers, business executives, who should have understood the responsibility that comes with inherited wealth, would manipulate their aging parents into providing financial support for increasingly extravagant lifestyles, while showing decreasing respect for the elderly relatives, whose lifetime achievements and investment expertise had created the family prosperity they were exploiting for personal advantage. I remember the case of Patricia Morrison, an 75-year-old widow whose son Michael convinced her to provide funding for his medical practice expansion while simultaneously moving her into a modest assisted living facility because her large family home was quote, too expensive to maintain, and she was quote, Patricia believed she was helping her son achieve his professional dreams while making practical decisions about her own living situation, but I discovered through financial monitoring that Michael was actually using family trust funds to finance a luxury lifestyle that included expensive vacations, country club memberships, and private school tuitions, while forcing his mother into substandard housing to reduce his financial obligations. Michael's exploitation became systematic and increasingly cruel as he gained control over more of Patricia's financial assets. He convinced her to sign power of attorney documents under the pretense of helping with financial management, then used this legal authority to redirect trust fund distributions toward his own accounts, while reducing Patricia's living allowance to levels that barely covered her basic needs in the inadequate assisted living facility. When I investigated further through our family monitoring protocols, I discovered that Michael had not only stolen over $400,000 in trust fund assets, but was actively planning to sell Patricia's family home and other valuable properties to fund his practice expansion, leaving his mother with minimal assets and no financial security for future healthcare needs or emergency situations. The emotional devastation to Patricia when she learned about this betrayal was heartbreaking. She felt that her own son had violated the trust and family bonds that represented her primary source of emotional support and connection during her elderly years. The financial abuse had eliminated not only her security, but also her faith in family relationships, and her ability to trust people who claimed to care about her welfare. But beyond professional achievements and expertise, my wealth management career had taught me invaluable lessons about respect, family responsibility, and how people's behavior changes dramatically when they believe they can exploit elderly relatives who appear to be financially dependent but may actually control significant assets and influence that could make or break their financial security, with decisions about trust fund distributions and inheritance arrangements. I had observed thousands of family financial dynamics during wealth management consultations and estate planning sessions over 4 decades. I had seen devoted families who honored elderly relatives' wisdom and included them respectfully in financial decisions, making efforts to ensure that generational wealth supported family unity while preserving resources for future generations through responsible spending and respectful treatment of the elderly family members whose lifetime achievements had created their prosperity. But I had also witnessed families who dismissed elderly members' opinions when financial convenience became more important than family relationships, who viewed trust fund distributions as automatic entitlements, rather than understanding that continued financial support required maintaining respectful behavior and demonstrating the character values that justified generational wealth preservation and family legacy continuation. These families treated elderly relatives as obstacles to their financial independence, rather than recognizing them as the sources of their prosperity and the guardians of wealth that could be redirected or eliminated based on family behavior and respect levels. These observations had given me sophisticated understanding of financial exploitation patterns and the warning signs that indicate when family members view elderly relatives' generosity as automatic entitlement, rather than understanding that family wealth requires maintaining respectful relationships and demonstrating the character that justifies continued financial support and inheritance arrangements. The warning signs were always similar. Adult children who suddenly became very interested in helping with financial management when they needed money for major purchases or lifestyle upgrades, timing their attention to coincide with their financial needs rather than demonstrating genuine concern for elderly relatives' welfare and comfort. Family members who gradually gained access to elderly relatives' financial information, estate planning documents, and investment accounts under the guise of providing assistance, while actually positioning themselves to control or redirect wealth for their own benefit, rather than preserving it for appropriate family use and generational transfer. Successful professionals who move back into family homes claiming temporary financial difficulties while actually planning to establish legal residence that could support inheritance claims or property rights, often isolating elderly relatives from other family members, friends, and financial advisors who might question unusual interest in family assets or recognize signs of financial manipulation and exploitation. Most concerning were the family members who systematically isolated their elderly relatives from independent financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, and other professionals who might recognize financial abuse or provide objective guidance about wealth management and family financial relationships. These manipulative relatives would convince elderly family members that outside advisors were trying to steal their money, that financial professionals were charging excessive fees, and that only devoted family members could be trusted to properly manage complex financial situations, while actually planning to exploit that trust for personal financial gain. My marriage to Robert Thornfield had been a partnership built on shared commitment to building generational wealth, complementary expertise in investment management and estate planning, and dedication to preserving family prosperity, while maintaining the values and relationships that gave wealth its meaning beyond just financial accumulation. Robert was a brilliant estate planning attorney who had immigrated from Scotland in 1955 and started with a small legal practice in downtown Chicago, gradually building an impressive client portfolio of wealthy families throughout the Midwest who needed sophisticated legal guidance for preserving their fortunes across multiple generations. Robert's legal philosophy was methodical and strategically brilliant. He identified emerging tax planning opportunities before other attorneys recognized their potential, developed relationships with trust and estate specialists throughout the country before other lawyers discovered their expertise, and created wealth preservation strategies that protected family assets while maintaining the family relationships and values that gave generational wealth its purpose and meaning beyond just financial accumulation. Robert had an exceptional understanding of estate planning complexities and the legal structures that could protect family wealth from taxes, creditors, and family disputes that often destroy generational prosperity. In 1978, he established the Thornfield Family Trust, using innovative legal structures that provided tax advantages while maintaining family control over investment decisions and distribution timing that would allow our wealth to grow and support multiple generations of family members. His commitment to sophisticated legal planning proved prescient. By 1995, the Thornfield Family Trust had become one of the most successful family wealth preservation structures in the Midwest, generating consistent returns while providing tax advantages and legal protections that preserved family assets through economic downturns, legal challenges, and family changes that could have threatened our financial security and legacy preservation. The trust structure attracted attention from estate planning professionals and wealthy families throughout the region, and Robert became a consultant for other attorneys trying to achieve similar wealth preservation results and legal protection for their clients' family fortunes. Over 30 years of careful legal planning and investment management, Robert and I had built a financial legacy that included the $200 million family trust, substantial real estate holdings throughout Chicago and the surrounding suburbs, investment portfolios that provided consistent income and growth, and business interests that generated additional revenue while supporting our philanthropic commitments and community involvement. Robert's approach to wealth management was based on the principle that sustainable family prosperity required building genuine relationships among family members based on mutual respect, shared values, and understanding that generational wealth carried responsibilities for family unity and community contribution, rather than just providing individual financial benefit, without regard for family relationships or social obligations. He maintained reasonable distribution levels that allowed family members to live comfortably without developing entitlement attitudes, invested consistently in education and character development opportunities that prepared younger generations for wealth responsibility, and provided the kind of consistent family leadership that built loyalty and respect, spanning multiple generations, while preserving the values that gave our family wealth its meaning and purpose. One example of Robert's wealth management philosophy involved establishing education funds for all family members that provided full funding for college and graduate school expenses, but required maintaining academic performance standards and demonstrating character development through community service and family involvement. Family members who met these requirements received not only educational funding but also career development support and guidance that helped them build successful independent lives while remaining connected to family values and responsibilities. The education program not only supported individual family success but created strong bonds among family members who understood that their opportunities came with responsibilities for maintaining family relationships and contributing to family legacy preservation for future generations. Their success and continued family involvement created a positive cycle where family wealth supported individual achievement, while individual success strengthened family unity and generational wealth preservation. The family trust had reached $200 million in value by 2022, generating annual distributions of $8-12 million that supported family members throughout the Midwest, while funding charitable giving that benefited hospitals, universities, and community organizations throughout the region. Our family's financial success consistently maintained these distribution levels even during economic challenges, and our philanthropic commitments during prosperous periods often extended substantially beyond the minimum distribution requirements. But Robert was also a keen observer of human nature, who had noticed concerning patterns in some family members' approaches to trust fund benefits, family financial support, and respect for the elderly relatives whose lifetime achievements had created the prosperity that younger generations often took for granted, without understanding the effort and sacrifice required to build and preserve generational wealth. "Margaret, our family wealth represents decades of careful planning and sacrifice," Robert had explained to me during one of our conversations about family legacy and ensuring that inherited wealth strengthened, rather than corrupted, family relationships and character development. But some family members seem to view trust distributions as automatic entitlements, rather than understanding that continued financial support requires maintaining the values and relationships that justify generational wealth preservation. When I watch younger relatives interact with family financial benefits, I see them treating trust fund distributions as guaranteed income, rather than understanding that family wealth requires responsibility, respect, and commitment to the values that created our prosperity. He continued with concern about family members who didn't appreciate the effort and decision-making required to maintain and distribute generational wealth appropriately. They don't realize that trust fund distributions represent active investment management and careful planning that could be modified based on family behavior and character development, or that their financial security depends on maintaining relationships and demonstrating the respect that justifies continued family financial support. Robert had noticed that some family members seemed more interested in maximizing their financial benefits than in maintaining family relationships or demonstrating appreciation for the elderly relatives whose lifetime achievements had created their comfortable circumstances. During family gatherings, certain relatives would ask detailed questions about inheritance timing and distribution amounts, while showing minimal interest in family history, elder care, or the responsibilities that came with inherited wealth. I'm concerned that some people view family wealth as an automatic inheritance rather than understanding that generational prosperity requires each generation to demonstrate the character and values that justify continued family financial support, Robert had observed during one family reunion, when several relatives spent more time discussing trust fund distributions than participating in family conversation or showing interest in elderly relatives' welfare and needs. Family wealth should strengthen relationships and support character development, not create entitlement attitudes that damage family unity and disrespect the people whose achievements created our prosperity. These observations proved to be prophetic when we had children and grandchildren who would grow up benefiting from family wealth, while sometimes failing to understand the effort and sacrifice required to create and preserve generational prosperity, or the respect and responsibility required to maintain family relationships that justified continued financial support and inheritance benefits. The stage was being set for a winter evening that would test whether my son's family understood that wealth came with responsibilities for family relationships and elder care, or whether they would demonstrate the selfishness and disrespect that would cost them everything they thought they had inherited and leave them facing spring without the financial security they had assumed would continue automatically regardless of their treatment of the elderly relative who controlled their financial future. But David and Jennifer had no idea that the woman they were preparing to abandon in a blizzard controlled the trust fund that had been financing their lifestyle for 15 years. Or that their comfortable circumstances could disappear permanently based on a single evening's demonstration of their true character, when they believed no one with power over their financial future was watching their behavior. The winter storm that seemed like an inconvenient end to their holiday party would become the most expensive evening of their lives, and the coat they refused to provide would cost them everything they thought they owned when spring arrived, with financial consequences that would teach them the true meaning of family responsibility and respect for elderly relatives whose generosity they had been taking for granted. Looking back now with the clarity that comes from watching someone's true character emerge through their treatment of elderly relatives they consider burdensome, I can see that David and Jennifer's assumptions about my financial dependence weren't sudden judgments formed during that devastating winter evening. They were carefully cultivated beliefs based on their conviction that elderly mothers represented outdated obligations that successful modern couples had evolved beyond through their own professional achievements and contemporary lifestyle management. From the moment David first introduced Jennifer to our family during a casual Sunday dinner in March 2007, she demonstrated the kind of polite assessment that reveals someone's true attitudes about elderly relatives and their role in contemporary family dynamics. Jennifer had graduated from Northwestern University with a marketing degree, completed an internship at a prestigious advertising agency in downtown Chicago, and recently secured a position as marketing coordinator at Meridian Healthcare Solutions, a boutique consulting firm that specialized in what business publications called innovative healthcare marketing strategies for affluent demographic targeting. Jennifer's professional credentials were impressive on paper, and she carried herself with the confident poise of someone who believed formal education and corporate experience automatically qualified her as superior to elderly relatives who had built their success through different generational approaches and traditional business methods that contemporary professionals often viewed as outdated and inefficient compared to modern management techniques and technological solutions. But what struck me immediately about Jennifer's approach to family relationships and elderly relatives was her dismissive attitude toward any lifestyle choices that couldn't be traced to contemporary efficiency standards or current professional best practices. When she observed our family dynamics during that first Sunday dinner, her reactions revealed someone who viewed traditional approaches to elderly care and family financial support as inconvenient obligations, rather than understanding the complex relationships and responsibilities that connected family prosperity to elder respect and care. "Oh, you still live in this large house by yourself," she had commented while touring our family home in Lake Forest, her tone suggesting that elderly people living independently in substantial properties was charming but impractical compared to modern approaches to senior living that prioritized efficiency and cost management over family tradition and personal preference. Most families today have found that assisted living communities provide much more appropriate care and social opportunities for elderly relatives, while reducing the family burden of maintaining large properties that are difficult for older people to manage safely. "I've lived in this house for 43 years and raised my children here," I had replied, continuing to prepare dinner in the kitchen that had been the center of our family life for decades, and represented my connection to family memories and traditions that couldn't be replaced by institutional living arrangements designed for efficiency, rather than personal meaning and family continuity. "That's so traditional and sentimental," Jennifer had responded with the kind of enthusiasm that sounded appreciative but actually conveyed condescension, as if family tradition was a quaint concept that had value primarily as nostalgia, rather than representing important emotional connections and practical benefits that institutional care couldn't provide. "It must be nice to maintain those old family connections, even if modern senior living offers more practical advantages and professional care services." This exchange established the dynamic that would characterize Jennifer's relationship with my independence and family role throughout the 15 years leading up to the winter evening that would destroy her financial security. She consistently positioned herself as the educated professional who appreciated traditional family values for their emotional significance, while simultaneously making it clear that she considered modern approaches and institutional solutions superior in terms of efficiency, cost management, and practical elderly care that reduced family obligations and simplified contemporary lifestyle management. Jennifer's background had prepared her to view elderly relatives through the lens of corporate efficiency and contemporary family management, rather than understanding that traditional family structures often provided superior emotional support and practical benefits precisely because they prioritized family relationships and individual needs over standardized institutional care and cost reduction strategies. During subsequent family gatherings, Jennifer's comments about my living situation and family role revealed a pattern of subtle criticism disguised as professional concern and helpful suggestions. She would ask questions about my daily routines and household management that seemed caring but actually demonstrated her assumption that elderly independence needed improvement through contemporary services and institutional support that would reduce family involvement and simplify everyone's responsibilities. "Margaret, I'm curious about your daily routine and household management," she had said during a family dinner in November 2007, watching me manage the meal preparation and hosting duties that I had performed successfully for decades, without assistance or institutional support. "Have you ever considered exploring some of the contemporary senior services that could help with household maintenance and daily activities? Many families today have found that professional services can enhance elderly independence while reducing family concerns about safety and daily care management." "I've managed my household successfully for over 40 years, I had explained patiently, serving the dinner that I had prepared entirely independently, using the same organizational skills and physical capabilities that had allowed me to run a major investment firm, while maintaining family responsibilities and community commitments throughout my career. I have excellent health, strong family relationships, and the financial resources to maintain my independence and comfort without requiring institutional assistance or professional services that would reduce my control over my own living environment and daily decisions." "Oh, I didn't mean to suggest you needed institutional care," Jennifer had quickly clarified, apparently realizing that her suggestion might have sounded inappropriate or insulting. "I was thinking about professional services that could enhance your current independence while providing family peace of mind about safety and emergency preparedness for elderly relatives living alone in large properties." But her clarification actually revealed the deeper problem with her approach to elderly family members. Jennifer consistently focused on potential problems and safety concerns, rather than recognizing that successful independent living was evidence of continued capability and decision-making authority that deserved respect, rather than institutional intervention designed to reduce family obligations and transfer elderly care to professional services. Jennifer's attitude toward my independence reflected broader assumptions about elderly women and their role in contemporary family structures. To her, I represented a generation of elderly relatives whose independence created family obligations that modern couples should minimize through professional services and institutional solutions, rather than maintaining traditional family support systems and respecting elderly relatives' preferences for maintaining their established lifestyles and living arrangements. She consistently treated my independence as a potential liability rather than recognizing it as evidence of continued capability and financial security that actually reduced family obligations by eliminating the need for elderly care support and assistance. During family gatherings, she would make comments about elderly safety and institutional care options, while framing her concerns as family responsibility and caring attention, rather than demonstrating understanding that my independence was maintained through substantial financial resources and continued professional capability that made institutional care unnecessary and inappropriate. "Margaret, have you given any thought to emergency preparedness and safety planning for living alone in such a large property?" she had asked during a Christmas dinner in 2008, apparently assuming that elderly people living independently required special safety measures and emergency protocols that younger people didn't need to consider for their own living situations. "I have comprehensive security systems, emergency contacts, and financial resources that provide much better safety and emergency preparedness than most people maintain regardless of their age," I had explained, testing whether Jennifer understood that financial security and professional planning often provided better safety and emergency preparedness than institutional care or family supervision that assumed elderly people were inherently less capable of managing their own welfare and security needs. "But surely family support and professional services could enhance your current safety measures while providing additional peace of mind for everyone," Jennifer had persisted with obvious confidence that contemporary family management required minimizing elderly relatives' independence through institutional support and professional services that reduced family obligations while ensuring appropriate care and safety for elderly family members. Her insistence on improving my independence revealed that Jennifer viewed my lifestyle as an inefficient arrangement that required professional intervention and family management, rather than understanding that financial security and continued capability allowed me to maintain independence that was actually superior to institutional alternatives in terms of personal comfort, family connection, and practical daily management. Jennifer's approach to my independence during family visits further demonstrated her assumptions about the limitations of elderly living and the superiority of contemporary institutional services and professional elderly care management. She would examine my household organization and daily routines with the concerned attention of someone evaluating a potential problem situation, making comments that revealed her belief that elderly independence required external support and professional monitoring to ensure safety and appropriate care. "This is such a beautiful traditional home," she had commented during a family gathering in early 2009, examining my household organization and management systems with the careful concern of someone assessing an elderly relative's capability rather than recognizing successful independent living that demonstrated continued competence and financial security. It must be challenging to maintain such a large property and manage all the household responsibilities without professional assistance or family support services. Traditional household management often provides better results than contemporary services when you have the financial resources and organizational skills to maintain high standards, I had replied, watching her evaluate my living situation with the analytical approach of someone who believed elderly relatives required external assessment and professional intervention, rather than recognizing that successful independence was evidence of continued capability and decision-making authority. "I have household staff, professional maintenance services, and financial resources that allow me to maintain my independence, while ensuring that my home and daily routine meet my standards for comfort and efficiency." Jennifer consistently framed our conversations about independence in terms of safety concerns and potential improvements, rather than understanding that financial security often provided better living arrangements and daily management than institutional care or professional elderly services that prioritized cost management and standardized care over individual preferences and personal comfort. But the most revealing aspect of Jennifer's attitude toward my independence was her assumption that my lifestyle and household management were family obligations that created responsibilities for younger relatives, rather than understanding that financial independence actually reduced family obligations by eliminating the need for elderly care support and assistance that many families required when elderly relatives lacked the resources to maintain their own independence and comfort. During a family gathering in March 2009, Jennifer had casually mentioned that she was researching contemporary approaches to elderly family support and modern solutions for helping elderly relatives maintain safety and appropriate care while reducing family stress and obligation management. When pressed for details, she explained that she was exploring institutional care options and professional services that could enhance elderly independence while providing family peace of mind about safety and daily care management. "I'm working on developing a comprehensive elderly care plan that addresses safety concerns while maintaining independence through professional support services and family coordination," she had explained with obvious pride in her analytical approach to family management and elderly care planning. "Instead of traditional family obligation approaches, I'm researching contemporary solutions that provide appropriate care while reducing family stress and allowing everyone to maintain their own lifestyle priorities. What specific safety concerns or care needs are you addressing with this planning?" I had asked, curious about whether her research had included understanding the financial resources and professional capabilities that actually determined elderly care needs and independence sustainability, rather than simply assuming that elderly relatives required external intervention and family management, regardless of their individual circumstances and financial security. "I've been analyzing general elderly care principles and identifying potential risk factors that could affect independent living safety and family obligation management," Jennifer had replied with the confident terminology of someone who believed that elderly care could be standardized through professional assessment and institutional solutions, rather than understanding that individual circumstances and financial resources often determined appropriate care approaches and independent sustainability. But her explanation revealed that she was treating elderly care as a theoretical problem to be solved through professional services and institutional solutions, rather than understanding that my specific situation involved financial security and continued capability that made contemporary elderly care planning unnecessary and inappropriate for my particular circumstances and lifestyle preferences. Jennifer's corporate position at Meridian Healthcare Solutions had reinforced her assumptions about the superiority of professional services and institutional solutions over traditional family approaches to elderly care and support. The company specialized in what its management called optimized healthcare solutions that helped families manage elderly care obligations through professional services and institutional arrangements that reduced family involvement while ensuring appropriate care and safety monitoring for elderly relatives. Working in this environment had taught Jennifer to view elderly relatives as potential care management challenges, rather than understanding that financial security and continued capability often eliminated the need for professional intervention and institutional solutions that were designed for elderly people who lacked the resources to maintain their own independence and decision-making authority. Our company philosophy is about helping families navigate elderly care challenges through professional solutions that optimize safety and care quality while minimizing family stress and obligation management, Jennifer had explained when describing her work at Meridian Healthcare Solutions during a family dinner conversation. We help families identify appropriate institutional care and professional services that provide better elderly support than traditional family obligation approaches, while allowing younger family members to maintain their own lifestyle priorities and professional commitments. But this philosophy actually represented a fundamental misunderstanding of family wealth and elderly independence, treating financial security and continued capability as problems to be managed through institutional intervention, rather than recognizing that substantial resources often provided superior independence and comfort, compared to professional elderly care services designed for people who lacked the financial means to maintain their own living preferences and decision-making authority. Jennifer's confidence about her understanding of elderly care and family management had grown throughout her first few years of marriage to David, particularly as she gained more responsibility at Meridian Healthcare Solutions, and received positive feedback from clients who appreciated professional solutions that reduced family obligations and simplified elderly care management through institutional arrangements and professional services. Her success with "optimized elderly care solutions" had convinced Jennifer that she understood family management principles well enough to evaluate and improve traditional approaches to elderly relatives and family support through contemporary professional services and institutional solutions that prioritized efficiency and cost management over individual preferences and family relationship maintenance. She began speaking about elderly care and family obligations with the authority of someone who believed that analyzing and systematizing family relationships had given her expertise equivalent to decades of family experience and individual relationship management that couldn't be replaced through professional services and institutional care designed for standardized, rather than individual approaches to elderly support and independence. The thing about traditional family approaches to elderly care is that they often achieve adequate results through inefficient methods that can be optimized without losing the essential family connection and support, Jennifer had explained during a conversation about elderly care and contemporary family management trends. When you understand the principles behind family obligations, you can preserve the important emotional elements while eliminating unnecessary family stress and improving care quality through professional services and institutional support. This attitude revealed Jennifer's fundamental misunderstanding of family relationships and elderly care, which achieved their results not despite traditional approaches but because of them. Family connections and individual attention had been developed through generations of experience, specifically because they produced superior emotional support and practical care, and attempting to, optimize them, usually eliminated the precise elements that created authentic family relationships and appropriate elderly support. But Jennifer's professional success and growing confidence in her family management abilities had created a sense of authority that extended beyond her actual expertise, particularly in her interactions with elderly relatives whose independence she viewed through the lens of her professional training and contemporary elderly care industry experience. By the spring of 2010, Jennifer had established herself as the family's unofficial elderly care expert, offering suggestions about safety planning for family gatherings, commenting on traditional family approaches with the authority of professional experience, and positioning herself as the bridge between our family's traditional elderly care and contemporary professional services that valued efficiency and cost management over individual preferences and family relationship preservation. I think it would be wonderful if Margaret could benefit from some of the contemporary elderly care services that would enhance her current independence while providing family peace of mind, Jennifer had suggested during a family conversation about elderly care and family responsibility. These professional services have such sophisticated approaches to elderly support that they could really improve traditional family care while reducing family stress and obligation management. Traditional family support is usually based on individual relationships and personal preferences rather than standardized professional services, I had replied, testing whether Jennifer understood the difference between family relationships and institutional care that treated elderly people as problems to be managed, rather than individuals with specific preferences and financial resources that determined appropriate care approaches. "Oh, I didn't mean replacing family relationships," Jennifer had clarified quickly, apparently realizing that her suggestion might have sounded inappropriate or insensitive to family connections. "I was thinking more about professional enhancement and safety optimization that could support traditional family care, while providing contemporary services that improve elderly independence and family peace of mind." But her clarification actually revealed that she didn't understand the difference between family relationships based on individual connection and professional services designed to replace family involvement with institutional care that prioritize standardized approaches over personal preferences and individual circumstances that determined appropriate elderly support and independence management. Jennifer's growing confidence in her elderly care expertise and her assumptions about family management had set the stage for the winter evening that would reveal her true character and cost her everything she thought she had inherited from the family wealth that she assumed was automatic inheritance. Rather than understanding that continued financial support required maintaining family relationships and demonstrating respect for elderly relatives whose lifetime achievements had created the prosperity that younger generations often took for granted, the modest suburban lifestyle that David and I maintained during family gatherings had become, in Jennifer's mind, evidence of elderly dependence and traditional family obligations that needed improvement through contemporary professional services and institutional solutions rather than understanding that our apparent simplicity concealed sophisticated financial management and investment strategies that provided security and independence far superior to institutional elderly care or professional services designed for people who lacked substantial financial resources. Jennifer had no idea that the woman whose independence she planned to optimize through professional elderly care services controlled the trust fund that had been financing her luxury lifestyle, or that her comfortable circumstances could disappear permanently based on her treatment of the elderly relative whose financial generosity she had been taking for granted while planning to reduce her family obligations through institutional care and professional services. The family conversations that seemed like opportunities to demonstrate her elderly care expertise would become evidence of her fundamental misunderstanding about family wealth and the respect required to maintain financial support from elderly relatives whose lifetime achievements had created the prosperity that enabled younger family members to live comfortably while sometimes failing to understand the source of their financial security. David's attitude toward my independence was less systematic than Jennifer's,